Well, hi, everybody. It's another Conversations With, and I'm delighted today to have with me Jerry Russell. Jerry's with a group of folks in the town of Charlton who have some concerns and some issues about a proposal that involves a marijuana growing plant of some sort that is proposed to be put into what we all know as Charlton Orchards. And Jerry, I'm delighted to have you with us. It's great to see you. And why don't you share with us some of our issues and concerns?
Yeah. Well, Dick, it's a pleasure to be here.
Good.
I appreciate you having me in. We are a loosely knit group of people who are not anti-cannabis. We are concerned about the size and the location of this proposed project, Valley Green Grow. And frankly, it has the potential to affect the quality of life of many people on Old Worcester Road and adjoining properties. It's improperly zoned, and as a result, it could disrupt traffic, quality of life. Odor problems are possible, and certainly lighting issues, and there are a whole host of other issues that could affect the quality of life of people in the neighborhood. And it is a neighborhood. This is a agriculturally zoned area, residentially zoned. It's the wrong place for this project. This project belongs in a place that is properly zoned, which would be industrial. And there are properties in town along Route 20 that would accommodate this quite nicely.
Oh, one of the things that's happened in Charlton, and I think one of the things I think about a lot is that there are people who think we're a small town. Well, Charlton is the second largest sized community in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Geographic.
Yeah, with 54 square miles of land. We've seen a tremendous amount of people with these solar farms.
Correct.
You know, we have a low tax rate, and we have land.
Mm-hmm. We have land.
And we have a low tax rate. So, and we have a great location.
Right.
You know, and so it make people say, whoa. And certainly, once the Commonwealth got involved, and we have this commission now that is involved, and I think the problem is it's new, and whenever it's new, there are things that have to, in time, be worked out, you know, because they don't have all the answers. I saw an interesting thing today. They had the Gaming Commission on because MGM's opening on Friday in Springfield. And Crosby, who's the head of it, says, you know, up until now, we've only guessed. Well, once it opens, now we're going to know for sure, are we going to have this problem and this problem? And I think the same is true of the cannabis issue.
Well, you raise a good issue, and that is the size of Charlton. Very big town geographically.
Yeah.
And with Article 27, which passed in the town meeting,
Yeah.
we have now opened up the town to unlimited cultivation on agriculturally zoned land in town. More than 80% of Charlton is zoned agricultural residential.
Yeah.
And any 10-acre parcel or more can potentially be a site for cannabis cultivation. Now, we saw solar farms popping up everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And it got to the point where town officials said, wait a minute, we need to do something. So they passed a moratorium.
Yeah.
Would like to be thinking ahead of this without having all of the cultivators coming in. So that's one of the problems with Article 27.
Well, there's already another one that just applied now for something up on Route 20. There's a second group came in.
There is Fourscore
Yeah.
that has a proposal in
Yeah.
for a building on Route 20, correct?
Yep. And so, to your point.
But that's properly zoned, Dick. That's properly zoned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So in your mind, he's okay.
In my mind, he's okay because it's properly zoned. What's happening with VGG, Valley Green Grow, they are not properly zoned. Despite what the interpretation is from the town zoning enforcement officer, it's not properly zoned.
If it's agriculture, one of the arguments that's being passed around is they're going to grow a plant. Mm-hmm. That's what agriculture is. You grow a plant. So, and I happen to know that DOR is saying the legislature's got to get involved and they've got to define what that is, because there is already 61, there's a bunch of articles that stipulate in it, and one of the words on there is tobacco. That's a plant that can be grown.
Correct.
So, and I got it. I understand your concerns, believe me. My point was, some of these questions, or some of these interpretations, need to be spelled out better.
Correct. So let me address the issue of agriculture. In 2016, the state legislature amended the law with regard to cultivation for cannabis. Cannabis was written into the law that it is not to be considered agriculture. That was a 2016 amendment to state law.
Yeah. So that was put, so now what is that, is that under 61?
No, that's not under 61. And as you know, 61A is silent on the issue of this.
Yep.
Which is why the state, DOR, has put the onus on the towns
Yep.
and cities, boards of assessors, to determine whether or not this is an allowed use. That's another issue, but
Well, that's what I say. The thing has become incredibly complex. I mean, it's not a, boy, wouldn't it be great if everything in life was simple? but you know, in reality, Jerry, it's very, very, it's, how do you look at it? How do you see it? What is the interpretation? I mean, when I saw some of the things from DOR that came back, I'm saying, well, somebody on the state level's got to make a decision on this, you know. But what they're doing is saying, not us. Here you go, you know. Here you go, and that's where we get into the difference of opinions.
yeah. Well, and one of the main problems here, Dick, is the way this was foisted on the residents, on the people of Charlton, by town officials who did not first let residents know. This is a common courtesy of good government and transparency to let people know what they're about to do, what they want to do. Here's the proposal. That wasn't done. That was a betrayal of public confidence in the way selectmen conducted themselves.
But their meetings are public.
Well, their meetings are public.
Yeah.
But the meeting at which they voted to approve this project, it was not advertised to residents that this project, a project of this scope, something that the development agreement says anywhere from 1 to 3 million square feet. That's the size of 3 million square feet, the size of 16 super Walmarts. That's a monstrosity.
Yeah.
That's a monstrosity.
That's a big property.
And that's what the development agreement says, 1 to 3 million square feet.
And I got it. But I mean, in fairness, you have to, when you post a meeting, it's got to be posted 48 hours ahead. You got to put on there what the agenda is, et cetera, et cetera. So it wasn't as though nobody knew about it. I mean, to your point, not very many people check to see what's coming up. I got it, you know.
Well, I don't know. Let's talk about this. The agenda item said host agreement, 44 Old Worcester Road. Now, my recollection is that the agenda didn't say we're going to vote on it, we're going to take a vote.
Right.
It didn't say, I don't think it said development agreement. And 44 Old Worcester Road, well, what's that? Well, I live on Old Worcester Road.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that the Orchard's address was 44 Old Worcester Road.
Yeah.
I know mine is 63,
Yeah.
but Old Orchard, Charlton Orchard's 44.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'd have to look it up.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I'd have to look it
Yeah.
up. So I don't think there was a great effort at transparency. But we're beyond that. We've
Yeah.
got to move forward here
forward, yeah.
and look at, you know, what's before us. And that is addressing the issue of the size of this operation and how it can be certainly dealt with by the planning board.
Well, the town meeting, basically, Article 1 was defeated. Article 2 was passed.
Correct.
Now, Article 2 basically says what? That you can have a ballot vote on this?
Article 2 was the ban on recreational marijuana.
Yeah.
So that's a two-step process that's been laid out by the state. So the vote was overwhelming in the special town meeting. So what we need now is the selectmen to call a vote, a ballot vote, for probably early November, coincide with the the
Well,
election?
One of the things would be that if they can do it, it can't go on the state ballot because
Correct. It'd be a separate ballot.
but they have two ballots that day, one with the question and the other one, because that saves the town a lot of money. Because they're going to have that's would be the logical place to do it, because that's the next time, other than the primary, which is too close to do it then, would be in November. And that, but that would mean that the town of Charlton would have to vote to ban it.
It's a majority vote
Yeah,
for general bylaw.
yeah. But the state has okayed it. State says you can have marijuana.
Correct.
So this would be a vote for Charlton only,
Correct.
right? And have they, is that going to happen, or you don't know?
Is the vote going to happen?
Yeah.
Well, that's up to selectmen to call the election, to set up the election. We are concerned that we're hearing rumblings that there may not be a decision by selectmen to have a ballot vote. If that's the case, that would be very unfortunate, that the selectmen, if they do deny people a right to vote, that would be very unfortunate.
Well, that's going to be interesting. I mean, I can't speak for the Board of Selectmen, but that would be, the one thing I did learn in my life in politics is that once you're elected, every time you make a decision, you make an enemy. Because in order to make a decision, that means there's somebody in each side of a question, or you wouldn't have to vote. So I learned that once you make a decision, you make an enemy. And unfortunately for politicians, if you make enough enemies, next time you're up for re-election, you're gone. So I always remind people, be careful, because if you're going to be in politics, you could have a limited tenure. But that's going to be intriguing to see where they are on that.
Well, I don't have any special knowledge as to what selectmen are considering, but we are concerned that a date has not been set yet. I believe it is on an agenda coming up on maybe the 28th, and that the selectmen will have legal counsel there. I understand there may be concern about liability of holding a vote, but nowhere in the documents that I can see, in the host agreement or the development agreement, anywhere where language indicates that the citizens of Charlton lose our right to vote. That's a basic right.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think there's any question about that. I don't think there's any question. Let's talk again about some of your concerns with this proposal taking place at, now we know, 44 Old Worcester Road. What are some of the other concerns you have? Now, you people are all abutters, most of you.
Not everybody, no.
No.
Not everybody is an abutter
Okay.
who is involved in this. Now, Dick, we, in order to get the special town meeting held, we collected more than 300 signatures. And we even had one of our folks in our group, Steve Coronas, and his family put together a map of those people who signed the petition for the special town meeting. And you see the dots on that map. They are all over town, not just Old Worcester Road,
No, I
but all over town. So we're not
understand.
just abutters. People who are concerned about this are not just abutters.
And well, but I mean, the point would be that the group of you who started this initiative went out and asked people to sign it, and they did. I mean, that's the greatest part about it. Petitions are wonderful, and people who support you, that's great. And they would be from different parts of the community, no question about it. But
Well, there has been some sentiment that had been vocalized by some town officials that this is a NIMBY issue, and it's far from that. And you know, even if it were just abutters who were concerned about this, don't we count? Now, I've been in town for 30 plus years paying property taxes. I would think selectmen should be concerned about what affects me and abutters.
well, I don't think there's any question that anybody who owns a piece of property, you know, and it's their property, has a right to be concerned about what's around them. I certainly am, where I have my place. And I remember way back years ago, and when we had the radio station, that there was a big brouhaha about up in New Braintree, and everybody kept saying, "Well, it's because it's going to be, nobody wants it in their backyard," and I understand it. Boy, do I understand that, and can't argue with it. You can't argue with it because it's real. All of a sudden you get this beautiful, 30 years, you get this beautiful property that you've owned, maintained, and all of a sudden something's going to change, 6 blocks down the road from you. And there's a concern.
And
Got it.
That's why there's zoning. There's
Oh,
a
of
reason
course.
for zoning.
Yeah.
And this property, which is a historic farm,
Oh, yeah.
dating back to the 1700s, and it's zoned agricultural residential for a reason. You don't plop something this size, not only cultivation, but manufacturing, which is not allowed in an agricultural zone. Manufacturing, processing. It's not allowed in an agricultural zone. Now, there is a higher authority than town officials. That's what the courts are for.
Oh, absolutely.
So you don't put something of this size and this magnitude with the amount of traffic that is outlined in the narrative of Valley Green Grow in the filing before the planning board. Traffic of, they have 260 parking spaces on the site. Now, that's an awful lot of traffic on Old Worcester Road. Tractor trailer trucks coming in and out, propane trucks coming in and out, delivery vans coming in and out. It's a small country road. It's just not appropriate for Old Worcester Road.
Well, I would think that at some point in time, they'd certainly have to do some infrastructure work there. To your point, if it's a small road, it's not going to be able to handle it. So they're going to have to do something with it.
Well, Old Worcester Road is a feeder road to many schools. We have 3 elementary schools. You got the middle school, the elementary school. Then even some people actually use it to go up Muggett Hill to get to the elementary school on Burlingame Road. You have Bay Path Regional High School, the technical high school, vocational, which is, I believe, a 10-school district.
10 towns, yeah.
And you have also people on the north side of Route 20 who will use Old Worcester Road, Morton Station, then down Oxford Road, Partridge Hill to go to the Dudley Charlton Regional School District.
Right.
So in the morning, and I know,
yeah.
I walk that road every morning for my morning walk, and it can be pretty risky walking on that road. I can't imagine adding another 300 trips from vehicles going in and out.
Right. Well, I know one of the concerns, because I know you had an opportunity to meet with this fella.
I did.
Yeah. And
a very nice man. I'd love to have him as a neighbor. If he bought the house next door to me, I'd welcome him.
Welcome to town.
Dr. Goldstein, a very nice, likable man. No. But I just don't want to see him as a neighbor on top of the hill.
On top of the hill. But the thing was, I know one of the concerns was property values.
For sure.
And I know that, and I had nothing to do with it. It was about 21 years ago when Millennium came in, there were similar concerns, not for the same situation, but similar concerns by the abutters. And they came up with a plan that the town's officials worked out back then with Millennium, and where they, and I'm just going to give you a quick overview, they would give each abutter $1,000 before they even started the plant, have all the property appraised by a outside appraiser, and then a year after it was in operation, come back and reappraise them, and if there was any difference, they would pay the difference. And this gentleman, and you met with him, said, I can do the same thing. Now, that solves, in your position, maybe one problem of a multitude, and you mentioned traffic, and then there's the concerns about the size of it, and so here we go. Is there anything? Let me ask you this question. Maybe there's another way to do this. Is there any way, by putting restrictions on it, that you can see that it could happen there?
Well, let me ask you this, Dick. You mentioned this plan. Have you seen the plan?
I've seen
the
it.
Property mitigation plan?
I've seen him I have an email that I received from Deb Ceccarini where he outlines that he basically will do similar what Ever Millennium did and spell some of it out. And it's just an email in writing that he said he would do it. Now, there's actually a document that's been signed, sealed, and delivered? No.
No.
But
I'm
but
in a
he
butter.
certainly-
I'm in a butter. I haven't seen any plan. I haven't gotten a certified letter showing
No,
me
but
a plan.
you did get an email that said he'd do it.
He's talking about it.
Yeah.
He's talking about it. It's one thing to talk about something. It's another thing to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
I haven't seen a plan. No abutters have seen a plan. You haven't seen a plan.
No.
You've seen an email.
I saw an email that said he would do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and you take it at face value. He said he'd do it. Now,
Well, he may, and if he does, then it could be a good thing for some abutters.
Yeah.
It's not something I'm going to avail myself of, because one of the conditions that Dr. Goldstein has indicated would be to no longer oppose the project. That's not something that I can agree to. But if there are other people who agree to something like this, then that's up to them, and if this helps them, then that's fine. But again, there is no plan. Nothing has been submitted or sent to abutters. So talk is talk.
oh yeah, 100%. But there's an indication that he is willing to do something.
Well, he's talking about
Yeah.
it.
Yep. So, what's the best thing that you can hope out of all of this?
Well, that Dr. Goldstein would move to another site, one that is properly zoned, which would be industrial along Route 20.
But there's also, obviously, the planning board has a different view of that. They're saying it is a proper place.
Well, again, the ultimate arbiter is a court of law.
The funny thing is, at that special town meeting, I was sitting up back, and there was some people, and a couple of people were getting ready to, the meeting was over, they were walking out, and they said, you know what? This is going to be a long, drawn-out process, and it will end up in the courts. Now, this was two, I don't know who they were just
Well,
two
it's already
citizens.
in the courts. We filed a complaint with the Worcester Superior Court. We have submitted written arguments, a written brief. Our attorney is Francis B. Fennessy, a town attorney, former Charlton selectman. And we have had our hearing in Worcester Superior Court, and it's now been taken under advisement by the judge, and it's still under advisement, so at some point there will be a decision.
Okay. Whether he goes forward.
Well, what we ask for in relief is that the vote by selectmen to approve this project be nullified.
Oh, okay. So he's going to rule on that then.
Well, it's not a he, it's a she, actually. But that decision is before the judge.
Okay. So she's going to be able to rule on whether that vote was legal or not.
Right, and again, it's based upon the door that opened this is what we allege to be a violation of the open meeting law in the posting of this meeting, during which selectmen voted to approve the project without first telling residents about it.
So when you say that the open meeting law, let's see if we can be clear so people can understand that. In other words, your argument is that in the posting of the meeting, they didn't make any indication that they were going to vote.
Well, correct. The posting in the agenda was deficient, and that's one of the problems. And Dick, the Cannabis Control Commission has a process that has spelled it out in their website.
Yeah.
And the first thing they want communities to do, and the developers to do, is to have community outreach meetings. That didn't happen in this case.
Oh, no.
We had a community outreach meeting after selectmen already approved the thing. Now, that doesn't make sense to me, and doesn't make sense to a lot of people.
Well, I mean, the thing is that's one thing that the Cannabis Commission has done has been very clear that the communities have got to want it, number one.
Right.
And
But in order to want it, you got to know about it.
well, yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things you got to be careful of, and you're newspaper guy and I'm an old radio guy.
I'm here as a citizen of Charlotte.
I understand.
And a property owner.
I understand, but you and I both know that what I'm saying is they'll argue, well, we put it right on there. We were going to discuss it tonight. You see what I'm saying? So you're going to get into, an interpretation of what is it real.
Well, that is regarding the posting and the agenda. I'm talking about the Cannabis Control Commission and the process that they want developers to follow. And number one is holding a community outreach meeting. Why would you solicit opinions from residents about something that might happen if you have already approved it? Why do you need anybody's opinions if you've already made your decision?
But I think there's also a fact that marijuana is approved in the Commonwealth.
That's true. Well, this is not. We're not anti-cannabis.
Right.
This is not about being opposed to marijuana. We're not fighting that fight. That's not what this is about. There are medical uses for cannabis.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Oh yeah. But again, the thing is that it's going to be interesting to see how, for instance, Her Honor rules on that application or that petition that you have before her.
It's a complaint, a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's going to be interesting how you don't know when to expect her answer.
Don't know. The judge is in charge of her courtroom and will take as much time as she thinks she needs to make a decision. And as far as I'm concerned, the more time a judge takes to make a decision, it tells me it's a thoughtful decision.
Oh, well, I'm sure she will, because one of the things that, every time one of those decisions get made, it affects not just Charlton, it can affect a lot of communities, because they can then use that, and say, well, wait a minute, in 2018, Worcester County Judge such and such ruled, and so it can. And so, that's the good news, I guess, that they do take an amount of time to make that decision. So the battle goes on.
The battle goes on.
And we see where it all comes down. And the bottom line to it is, you just don't want it at 44.
Well, Dick, it's a quality of life thing. The perimeter of this project is going to be lined with fencing, lined with 50-foot tall lights that will shine, and the narrative from the submittal from VGG says that they'll do their best to mitigate that light pollution. But if you are putting up lighting around the perimeter of this property, 90 plus acres, and the facility will be maybe 30, 35 acres, you're lining that around the property, lighting, there's going to be light pollution. So no more starry nights.
Oh, well, there's no question. If they're putting up lights, they're going to be on.
Well, lighting serves a purpose.
Yeah.
To illuminate. We don't need to illuminate apples right now, but they want to clearly, for security, illuminate the buildings.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to
security is going to be huge.
That's going to be a quality of life issue for abutters. Apparently not something that selectmen care about.
Well,
let me ask you, would you like that around your house?
Would I like it around my house?
Yeah.
I've got a light.
How about your neighbor?
I got a light on the
perimeter
corner.
lighting all around their house.
I have a different view. I have a piece of property that I like, and I really have no control over what my next door neighbor does with his. Yeah. That's his. He bought it. He owns it. If he wants to have 6 lawnmowers, good luck to him and the Red Sox.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, and of course, I'm also not faced with it either.
Yeah. Right.
So, until that happens, I mean, there are certain things, sure, every human being wants to protect what they got. And none of us like change. Yeah. My hand is up. I mean, none of us like change.
Let's talk about another. This isn't really about change. It's about quality of life, and we've got other issues that deal with the issue of noise. There's going to be a separate power plant up there as well. So many issues which the planning board will deal with. We plan to be there at every meeting.
Good.
And we will pursue all options to...
and I don't blame you.
Okay.
Jerry, we're out of time, but I want to
Okay.
thank you so much
Thank you.
for coming.
I appreciate
hope
it.
folks you get a chance to see the other side of it if you haven't heard it before. Now you got it. That's another Conversations With.